Hello, and welcome to the Mohit Show. In this video I will be covering stories from r/detrans, a well-moderated subreddit for people questioning, desisting, or detransitioning. I will be protecting the identities of these posters since individuals in this community have been harassed when their stories have been discussed. A text-to-speech voice is being used due to current recording difficulties. This video's first post, titled, "What was reasons for your transition you realized much later?" Desisted male. I've noticed a lot of people with issues get sucked into the trans ideology yet realize later on they had a multitude of other things they didn't understand they were running away from. Me, I actually tried to transition from two perspectives. There was no trans ideology in my upbringing, so I thought I was biologically faulty and had too low hormones for a male. I had heard about trans people and I had some leanings towards thinking I could somehow play at life being feminine as I was in the emo subculture for a long while. However, as I didn't have any real trans indoctrination, this was way before trans became trendy and a leftist canonical belief, and I didn't really have any group telling me that I should get testosterone. All my ideas of changing my body that way died out when the doctors told me I was healthy. Years later I got a craft as work I became okay in. I got a job, a long-term girlfriend after a rich dating life with lots of lovely sexual partners and short-time dating, and I became a lot more relaxed about being this not very macho, short guy. I think the trans max incels are probably the closest I've come to self-aware trans people that haven't desisted yet, that simply try to evaluate the benefit, even though I think they read the data incorrectly. But there seems to be at least 3 to 4 reasons people are driven towards wanting to escape or feeling their sexuality or body is incorrect. What was your reason? From the comments. Detrans female. I was emotionally abused and neglected throughout my childhood. I saw the little girl that I was as weak and unworthy, so transition was the perfect solution. I could destroy the girl that I hated and create a new male persona that was confident, unemotional, and numb to the trauma. On top of that, I would get attention from pretty girls just like all of the guys that I saw online. I didn't realize all of this until many years after I began to socially transition, of course. Transition did accomplish these goals, but now I can see that these should never have been goals in the first place. The little girl inside of me cannot be hidden forever, and now I must begin facing the truths of my past. And I did get lots of attention from pretty girls just like I wanted, but most of it was shallow and fleeting and just left me feeling empty. Desisted female. Same as that, but opposite genders. I always thought my brain and physiology had developed to male, even before hearing the terms trans or intersex. I would see all these pieces of evidence: my jawline, broad shoulders, thick body hair, very high sex drive, disinterest with penetration, discomfort with feminine things, instinctively wanting to emulate men, thinking I was supposed to be a man and never a woman. The Truscom perspective made things click for me. Before discovering it, all trans stuff looked too girly and tomboy for me, even the flag, to want to join even though I suspected my feelings had a name: dysphoria. Initially I didn't see how much of it was just unquestioning assumptions about how women and men are perceived, even plain body parts. It's a biological condition with no other variables. Attitude was too overconfident though and left no room for exploration. There were so many immature teens parroting the exact same "I'm a real trans and it's super rare" line. And that bothered me until the damn cracked and gender critical points not only started making more sense, but the Truscom hypothesis turned out to not hold as much scientific water as I'd thought. I wish more people knew that a naked woman can be what we consider masculine: powerful, unsexualized, capable, sturdy. Likewise, a naked man's body can be many of the things culture sees as feminine: elegant, sensitive, valuable, yielding. Detrans female with a CCSD. There was trans ideology in my upbringing but not directly. My father was influenced into listening to a transgender co-worker, former friend, who was his main distributor of advice for his gender non-conforming intersex child. Not only was I vastly different from other girls, but I felt like I could never truly vibe or be like other girls. This of course at a point led to me being singled out and targeted, adding in the asset of my body not developing properly and leading to disturbing rumors about my body and who I was. I used to use this as reasoning and truth for why I was truly trans. After having this idea I could become a man brought up to me, especially with my deep-rooted fear of being seen having attraction to girls, to the point I forced myself into a hetero relationship despite how miserable it made me. On top of that, I later realized one of my sisters and father singled me out because I was a girl and not a boy, whereas in my transition both of them treated me with respect and kindness. So, trauma, internal homophobia, my CCSD/DSD, and of course not like the other girls. Desisted male autogynephilia, which is arousal at the thought of being a woman, or in my case arousal at the thought of transitioning into a woman, addiction to trans porn, autism which made me feel awkward about my gender, and OCD which led to constant thought loops about gender. Original poster, desisted male. I've noticed a bias of this in myself too. I was one of those guys less intimidated by futa porn, and I at least wanted to be the feminine role so I wouldn't have to pursue women, which was scary. I did also have OCD, probably caused by a weak social status and stress, but I've seen it in other trans people too. Detrans. I know it sounds mean, but being fat. I was obese as a teenager, and I just knew my body is not supposed to look like this. I'm an in-shape adult now and am very confident as a man. Detrans male. There were a few things going on: hopelessness with my current life situation, both hating my body and who I was as a person, feeling as if I would never be able to date anyone. It was definitely me trying to escape my problems. Detrans female. Long story short, I was sexually abused in childhood and grew insecure as a girl, felt in danger in my developing body because of shit I was exposed to. I felt extremely uncomfortable and started rejecting my body. Always thought being a man was easier, that guys didn't worry about almost anything, had more fun and were just better. Next post, titled, "Miss my long hair so much." Desisted female. Just that. Sad face. Next post, titled, "Testosterone ruined my life." Long vent. Sorry, detrans female. I just recently posted how I've just hit 1 year off of T, but man, it's debilitating living like this. Living with the effects of these hormones which have impacted my health, my voice, my hair, my everything, my life. Every single day it is on my mind that I am not the person I was naturally supposed to be. That I must now live in extreme amounts of fear surrounding my voice. I cannot approach people well, I struggle with making friends due to it. I have not made an actual friend by talking since 2019. I've always started with notes and then texting, then voice reveal. I missed out on 5 years of my life, identifying as FTM. I missed out on what I should have had. That I will never have back. It sucks how when I was 11, I discovered being trans and thought it fit me, my problems, who I was. It was either massive amounts of support reaffirming my identity as a trans man, or pure hatred and bullying and denial which only made me want to rebel harder. There was never a neutral ground where I could learn how my abuse and mental disorders were the cause of what I felt. And now I suffer the consequences of a little over 2 years on testosterone and changes that will have an effect on me until I die. It's miserable. I've begun hating everything associated with anything transgender. It's like, you have this problem that hormones are guaranteed to magically fix, then you no longer feel the problem. But now off of T, there is no magic solution to the problem that you are now stuck with. It's now that when I see an average stereotypical 12-year-old FTM with dyed hair and pronoun pins crying over their bodies and needing hormones, I just think, you probably have an eating disorder and trauma surrounding femininity and parental issues. Becoming trans doesn't fix any of that. You don't become a better person by being trans. God, I could go on and on about all of this. There is so much more to being detrans than there ever was being trans. I hate that this is my life. From the comments. Desisted. I feel like there will be a lot more stories like yours coming out in the next 5 years, and a lot that don't in fear of being transphobic. Detrans male. Look, there is a good tip for you. If you are in hell, just keep on going out, not turning back. We all make mistakes, but life is getting extremely better when we are changing properly. Next post, titled, "The Truth of the Trans Agenda." Detrans male. There is no conspiracy or secret agenda. The motive is very obvious for me. Money. The same reason Purdue Pharma said OxyContin wasn't addictive. The same reason Lupron, most commonly used puberty blocker, went from being valued around a few $1 million in the early 2000s to a $1.04 billion industry by 2026. That's just the puberty blockers. Never minded the surgeries, which are around $100-$200,000 per patient, the lifelong hormones, appointments, psych meds, blood tests, and severe illnesses that will be treated by the same industry that caused it. In the same way that Purdue created Suboxone, the drug used to get people off of the OxyContin pills they flooded the US with. Just a few days ago, after having to wait days for Planned Parenthood to respond to my concerns about side effects, only for them to say they had no idea what was causing it and I should just take a different form of the hormone, which I did to no avail, they emailed me a bill for several $100s which they had told me my insurance would cover. That is what it's about. The fact that for 18 days of HRT I ended up paying for 360 pills, and 8 estradiol patches which were about $100 out of pocket. Transition truly is the ultimate monetization of LGBT identities. It has brought millions of patients or truthfully customers in who otherwise would have never been dependent on the industry. People who would have never thought to have plastic surgeries are now getting them done on their genitals, and children who were otherwise healthy will be stuck paying to be on these medications for the rest of their lives, since after puberty blockers the body will never produce hormones in the same way it would otherwise. This is also an amazing way to separate the LGBT population and make us dependent on a system that has historically discriminated and experimented on us. All these people want to do is make their money and leave as much plausible deniability as possible, so when an entire generation of kids does get sick, they can say it was an experimental procedure, we were just trying to help, you were informed of the possible side effects. My biggest problem is that I feel it is impossible to consent to something if the information given isn't an accurate depiction of the side effects. They don't explain just how significant of a role hormones play in our body's regulation, and that once messed with it takes a long time to return back to normal. Eventually, in 10 to 15 years, this will go from having affected a minority, like how opiates mainly affected minority communities and the poor, to affecting the children of the wealthy, powerful, and vocal. Exactly like with opiates, which started to become an issue in wealthy, white, suburban neighborhoods. Eventually the voices of those hurt by hormones will be heard, and soon everyone will know someone affected by the trans movement in some way. I will say though, after going on hormones and feeling just how bad the side effects can debilitate you, the thought of a parent giving their child, who trusts them to keep them healthy and set up for success, a chemical originally designed to castrate pedophiles really does make me sick. These medications have been in use for a long time, but usually to prevent dangerously early puberty and not long-term. Stopping the body from reaching certain developmental milestones which there is no guarantee it will go through again will inevitably have some long-term consequences. I have no sympathy for any mother who allows their child to do this under their watch, nonetheless encourages it. From the second anyone is brought through the doors of a gender therapist's office, the end goal is move you from simple talk therapy to hormones, and then irreversible surgery. They know once that is done, they have a customer for life. From the comments. Desisted male: you're right about most of that, but there's more to the trans agenda than just making money. Desisted female: there's a lot of truth to that, it truly milks people for their money for life, and it's incredibly chilling to think just how much has already been gained from encouraging the trans movement in the medical direction ASAP. But the other motive really is goodwill. People, as a rule, think what they're doing is right or justified. For doctors, they're financially, and socially, incentivized to see speedy transition as the right thing to do. They're leading each other in this direction and dismissing criticism as phobic because A, frequently it is arguably transphobic, and B, because it's hard for the human ego to not reject the idea that these permanent, life-altering treatments they've already been dishing out to vulnerable, especially LGBT and young, people might not have been quite as right as initially thought. Few if any are ever thinking, well, I'm not sure this is ethical, but I want that money, so I'll do it anyway. This is a fantasy that just makes them simpler to hate. But really, it's more like, wow, this is a booming movement, like a present-day gay rights movement, and all these successful beloved professionals say transition is life-saving. There's a lot of opportunities for me to help all those poor trapped in wrong body people and be rewarded with my own success. This video's last post, titled, "Why do some people glorify being trans so much? Detrans male: imagine feeling distressed about your body almost 24/7. I find it weird, especially here on Reddit, where a guy wishes he was a girl, and everyone runs to him and tells him he has dysphoria. No, you do not want dysphoria." From the comments. Detrans male: being trans makes you special. Who doesn't want to be special? Desisted male: because oppressed groups and victimhood status give you a higher status in our society. There's a term for it, victimhood Olympics. Right now, being trans is extremely in vogue. Desisted female: lots of people on social media act as if the more oppressed you are, the holier you are. So, in certain circles, especially online and on Western/rich countries, if you're trans you're special and no longer an oppressor. It's also a way of ignoring larger societal problems and focusing on the individual. If you're trans it's like you're enlightened, unlike the dumb cis people. Detrans female is a trend RN, there's a label for every single stereotype that's being reinforced. This is a problem that just keeps getting bigger because more and more people go around saying the same BS to other people. OMG, so brave. So gorgeous/handsome. You got this. We support you. #lovey and acceptance #biology isn't real. That will be all for this video. Please like and subscribe for more. Thank you for watching and have a nice day. End.